It is so good to see all of you this morning. You can find your way back to your seat and take a seat. We're going to move into a discussion this morning that's going to be a little different than what we normally do. As Kristen said, we are doing our Sunday school kickoff today. And in years past, we've used our Sunday school kickoff. We've had a little more fanfare than we have in the past, but we didn't want this particular moment to go by without a little celebration. And without a little invitation for the kids and students to join us this morning. So I'm going to say a few kind of opening remarks, and then the kids that are here this morning and I are going to do some activities together. And so I want to introduce this and set this up for you all as you're sitting here. We've been talking a lot this over the last several weeks about transitions, and many of you understand why we're talking about transitions, and this summer definitely has been full of quite a few of them. However, the world, we are not the only ones that are in transition. The world around us, our friends, our neighbors, our community, our world is in a transition. And it wasn't part of the plan to have that be a series of sermons, but it's inadvertently become so. And it's not meant to keep harping on it. However, one of the things that I've learned in my life is that talking about change and transitions is really important. And we talk about these transitions before they happen, while they happen, and after they happen. And Paul Rock told me when he gave me the news about his transition that my sermon back in March, April about beginnings always begin with an ending. He said that inspired him, and I was like, don't you put that on me. This is not my fault. You want to go live in Paris, just admit it. But no, it seems like there were some stirrings kind of within us to talk about that, because change is a part of our lives. It is something that happens whether we like it or not. And so many times when we talk about change and transitions, it carries with it a lot of different kinds of emotions. And they are as broad and as different as can be. Sometimes change brings with it a sense of anxiety, what will happen, the unknown, sometimes fear, sometimes sadness, sometimes a grief, a sense of loss can be a part of that. But also change can sometimes be incredibly welcome. It can be a sign of better days to come, or the opportunity to start fresh. There are all these experiences that we have. And one of the lessons that I have learned about change is that getting better at change doesn't mean I don't feel those things anymore. Getting better at change means I stop fighting the fact that the change is here and the change is happening. And so learning to give myself permission to be okay in the midst of change, whether I like it, whether I don't like it, is part of the maturity process of thinking about how change happens. And so if you have noticed, as we go into a new school year, as we come back into an uncertainty about masks and where we're going this next year, especially compared to last year, whether it be the change in second and being present or having some different faces around, if you feel emotions anywhere on that spectrum, that's okay. You're allowed to. And that doesn't mean that something is wrong. What it means is that you are reacting and responding to change, and there's going to be a lot of feelings you feel with all of it. So what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to read some scriptures for you to kind of set the stage. And as we talk through some of these simple activities and lessons with the kids, those of you that are going to be a part of this and observing and watching, I want you to put your metaphorical and philosophical hats on. One of the things that I have found in life is sometimes the simplest truths are the most deeply profound. And I want you to pay attention and see through and see beyond and see the end game of what does this lesson lived over and over and over, year after year, decade after decade, what does it mean to us today? So with that set up, I'd like to read our opening scriptures this morning. And I want to tell you a story from the book of 1 Samuel. And I can't take credit for the observation of the particular principle we're going to explore in here. I heard it from someone that was very important to me, and I have cherished this truth, and I'm excited to pass this along to you because it has made a difference in my life. But this passage is taken from 1 Samuel chapters 1 and 2, a few scriptures from verses from each. But 1 Samuel 1, starting at verse 20, it says, "So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, which means, I asked the Lord for him. When Elkanah and all his household went up to make the annual sacrifice and keep his solemn promise, Hannah didn't go. I'll bring the boy when he is weaned," she told her husband, "so that he can be presented to the Lord and stay there permanently, and I will offer him as a Nazirite forever." "Do what seems best to you," said her husband Elkanah. "Stay here until you've weaned him, but may the Lord bring to pass what you have promised." So the woman stayed home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. When he had been weaned and he was still very young, Hannah took him, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a jar of wine, and brought him to the Lord's house at Shiloh. They slaughtered the bull, and they brought the boy to Eli. "Excuse me, sir," Hannah said. "As surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here next to you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this boy, and the Lord gave me what I asked from him. So now I give this boy back to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is given to the Lord." Then they worshiped there before the Lord. Moving to chapter 2, verse 18. "Now Samuel was serving the Lord. He was a young boy, clothed in a linen priestly vest. His mother would make a small robe for him and take it to him every year when she went up with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice." I want to read a passage from Psalm chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. "The truly happy person doesn't follow wicked advice, doesn't stand on the road of sinners, and doesn't sit with the disrespectful. Instead of doing these things, these persons love the Lord's instruction, and they recite God's instruction day and night. They are like a tree replanted by streams of water, which bears fruit at just the right time, and whose leaves don't fade. Whatever they do succeeds." And this last passage is from Jeremiah chapter 17, 7 and 8. "Happy are those who trust in the Lord, who rely on the Lord. They will be like trees planted by the streams, whose roots reach down to the water. They won't fear drought when it comes. Their leaves will remain green. They won't be stressed in the time of drought or fail to bear fruit." Friends, this is the word of the Lord. All right. Can you still hear me? Very good. I'm going to invite the kids up. So if you are fifth grade or younger, I want you to come and join me here at the front. We are going to spend a little time together. All of you have gotten so big. I haven't seen you in like a year. Hi. It's good to see you. Just come stand. You're right here. Hi, Nora and Truman. Hi, friends. I usually see you guys later in the morning. I'm glad you're here today. Good. Hi. Come on over, guys. You can come join us. It is so good to see you. You guys remember me. My name is Jimmy, right? And I see and remember a lot of you. We are going to spend a little time together this morning because this is the start of a new year. How many of you have already started school for the year? Can you raise your hand? Yeah? How many of you will start school this week? Yeah? Okay, so we had a little bit of staggering. You've already started? No, tomorrow. It's here. It's coming. This is good. Well, are any of you going to be going to a new school starting this year? A school you haven't been to in the past? Okay, a couple of you have. Are y'all excited to kind of see some of your friends again after a long summer? Yeah? How many of you are going to classes where you have a new teacher? You know, most of us? Yeah, most of you are going to. How many of you remember the teachers that you've had, either last year or the year before? Do you remember them? Yeah? So here's what I want to do. This morning, I'm going to tell us, we're going to do 3 activities together, okay? And the first one is a little bit of a thank you activity that we're going to do. So what I want you to do is find a spot on each of these tables, find a sheet of paper with a marker by it. If you need to share, you can. There's more paper. I didn't set up a whole bunch, so you might be able to share or you'll have to take turns. And here's what I want you to do, everybody. Real quickly, this isn't going to be a long activity. Here you go. You want to pay? Come over here. You can stand on the stage right here. Let her. Ivan, come on over here on this side. Sounds good. Good. Here's a piece of paper for you. Well, friends, what I want you to do is I either want you to write the name of your favorite teacher. The best, your favorite teacher, and they could have taught you anything. They may actually have taught you a sport, or they might have taught you an art class, or they might have been your homeroom teacher. If you don't know how to spell their name, then draw a picture of them, okay? And think about what they might be wearing, all right? I have already written the name of my favorite teacher up here on the board. So y'all go ahead and do it, and I'm going to tell you about my favorite teacher. My favorite teacher was Mrs. Woods, and she was my freshman English literature teacher. And I'll tell you, when you're done, once you're done, go ahead and I want you to tape it up to the board here, okay? And Miss Sam, maybe can you help me with some tape here? One of the things you should know about me is growing up, English, reading, spelling were always my lowest test scores. Spelling didn't really make sense to me. I was much, much better at math and science. Reading comprehension was not my strong suit. It was a little bit of a chore. Every once in a while, I'd stumble upon a book series like the Chronicles of Narnia that I'd really emotionally connect with, and I'd plow through. But by and large, it was really hard for me to learn how to read. And so when I got to upper levels of literature, and this was my freshman college professor, Mrs. Woods, Mrs. Woods was the best possible teacher for people that didn't like English. And it's funny because I actually loved her so much, I recommended that my sister take her classes, and my sister was the opposite. She loved literature. By the time she was in college, she'd read several thousand books. She was the kid that came home with stacks of books from the library. And so she did not have as good an experience because she's like, I wanted to learn from a teacher that loves English as much as I do. And I was like, well, that's not going to be her. Mrs. Woods, though, taught me about poetry. She taught me about Shakespeare. I remember sitting in her class one day and her reading a passage from one of our textbooks, and you could hear a pin drop in the room. I remember another day when she was reading and having a running commentary on a particularly poorly written piece of literature, and I remember laughing with the rest of my class. And I remember I took her for every class she taught in college. If she offered it, I took it. And on my last day before I graduated, I went and I said goodbye to Mrs. Woods, and I thanked her for all that she'd given me. She's the only teacher that I really even remembered, but she made such an impact on me because she didn't just pass along information, she inspired me. So I want to ask you all, as you're putting your names, the names of your teachers up here, we've got Miss Roberts, Mrs. Westerman, sorry. Yep, it's S.A. Westerman. I looked at it too fast. Mademoiselle Dervin, is that right? Yeah. Mr. Jones. Does someone want to tell me why they like their favorite teacher? Tell me which one is yours. Yes, which one is yours, Normina? Did you all hear that? She loved this teacher because she let her stay up when it was nap time, even though she was supposed to be napping. There you go. Exceptions. We love it. Yeah, Noah? Or Jonah? Okay, she always kept her cool when people didn't act right. Yeah, Nora?
I liked my teacher because she likes STEM crafts a lot.
Say that again?
She lets us do STEM crafts a lot.
Just crafts and art?
Yeah, I love
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Charlie?
I liked my teacher because she was nice and helped me learn a lot.
She was nice and helped you learn a lot. Isn't that great when you have a nice teacher? Yeah. You only met him once, but he was very kind. That's great. JP? Yeah, what teacher did you have that you liked? You think about it. You let me know if you think about it, all right? Sometimes, and so some of the things that I'm hearing you say is when we have good teachers, they're the teachers that help us. They're the teachers that listen. They're the teachers that make things fun and make things creative. Yeah, that's fine. Miss Sharp? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you. What I want you to think about is that at some point you had to meet this teacher for the first time. And you didn't know them and they didn't know you, and so you had to figure it out, didn't you? You had to do some activities together, you had to do some lessons together, And what you did, because you gave them a chance and because you got to see them day after day, all of a sudden you found out, hey, I kind of like them. And so every time we think about change, every time we think about starting a new year, we could be meeting a teacher that is really exciting and really creative and really kind. And we always want to give thank you to the people that spend a lot of time with us and help us learn. Thank you for doing that. Y'all want to move on to our next activity? Okay, so I want you to come and circle around the table over here to my left. There we go. You can get all the way around it. I just need a spot on the back here. All right, so I want to tell you another story. And I want to tell you a story about planting some trees in my backyard. We have 2 oak trees. And do you know, oak trees are the really big ones. If you go out these doors here, there's some big oak trees there. Oak trees are not the little ones. They're the really big ones that grow. But we didn't plant really big oak trees. We had to plant really small ones. And we put them in our backyard. And the hope is that over time, they'll grow into big, beautiful trees, right? So, but the trees weren't there. So where did the tree come from, do you think? Huh? A seed. It came from a seed that was planted somewhere else, right? And so somebody planted that seed, and they watered it, and it started to grow, and it got big, and they took good care of it. They made sure in the winter time that the ice didn't, kill it. You don't want that to happen. But it grew, and so by the time when we got our trees, they were about this tall, okay? Almost maybe as tall as I am. We'll say they're about as tall as I am. And we had to put them in the trunk of our car, and the tree's this big, but then it also has a bunch of roots on the bottom, right? And you usually don't see the roots because the roots are where? They're usually underground. And do you think they're little or do you think they're big? They're big. And do you know some trees, the roots can be as tall as the tree itself? So what you see, they're going that big and that far down underground. That's crazy, right? But so if we wanted to have the tree grow in our yard, someone had to go get it, and they had to dig it up, and they had to take it to a store. And we went and got it from a store, and then we brought it to our house, and we dug a big hole. We dug 2 big holes because there are 2 trees, and we put them in, and we put more dirt around them, and we watered them every day. And I'm going to finish that story here in just a second, but I want to do something like that here today. So I found this big plant in one of ours. We bought this actually before we went into quarantine. Now look at how tall this plant is, and look at how small this pot is. If it has some big roots, it might be time for this little guy to move to a bigger pot. What do you think? Yeah. Okay, so I got a big pot, and I actually want your help. We're going to plant this one into a bigger pot, all right? So what I need you to do is I need 5 people. Here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need you to get a cup of dirt, and I need you to come and dump it here in the pot. Yep. Now, what do you think is in this particular dirt? This is special dirt. Yep. Come on, bring it over. This is called potting soil. There you go. Thank you. And potting soil is like dirt, and then it has vitamins and stuff in it. It has nutrients. It has things that you can actually feel it if you want. It doesn't feel quite like dirt. It's real fluffy. You want to feel it? Yeah? Isn't it? It feels a little different, right? Here you go. Can you feel it? Yeah. It feels a little fluffy and soft.
It's actually like it falls to the ground.
Yeah, it does. Here, let's let some other people try. Here you go. Y'all just want to feel it a little bit? Yeah, it feels a little different. Did y'all get a chance to feel it? And you want to give this kind of soil because you want a new plant. When it comes to a new space, you want to give it a whole bunch of good stuff. You want to give it a bunch of vitamins and a bunch of new stuff. Now, can you tell me, here's what we do. We're going to make a little hole here. And before we plant it, we're actually going to pour a little water in the bottom. That way the roots get a nice long drink right at the beginning. Ivan and Edie, would you help me? Would one of you hold that, and then with the other, would you kind of try to pull that out really gently, pull the stalk out, and we're going to move it real quickly and put it in. I just want to make sure it should be loosened. Let's see. There we go. There you go. Put it straight down. There you go. Now you got to hold it up. All right, now I need, if you didn't already do a cup of dirt, come here and we're going to fill in all the spaces around it. Here you go. Do you need a cup of dirt?
Yep, I need one.
Can you pour it in here? There you go. All the way around it. Yeah.
The big one.
There you go. Yep.
Nope.
You're good. You're good.
Here, pour it in there.
There we go. So we want to fill it at the bottom, and we want to give it some water, and then we want to fill it in all on top. So no matter what way that the roots grow, that it has some vitamins. Now, who can tell me the things that, what kind of things does a plant need to grow and be healthy? We know it needs soil. What's something else that it needs? Yeah.
Sunlight.
It needs sunlight, right? So we want to make sure that this plant gets a little sunlight. Did everyone get to pour a cup of dirt in? Here, we got 2 more. Does someone want to do an extra? Here you go. There you go. Can you pour it in on this side? So we need sunlight. What's something else that a plant needs to grow? So you've answered. Let's go ahead. Yeah. Water. It needs water because they get thirsty. What's something else it needs? It needs fertilizer. That's kind of like this, only fertilizers even has more vitamins and stuff in it. It also needs air, right? Carbon dioxide. And that's what they breathe. What do we breathe? Do we breathe carbon dioxide? No, we breathe what? Oxygen. So the plants make oxygen that we breathe, and then we give them carbon dioxide that they breathe, and we work together. Isn't that cool how God made something that works with us to make that happen? All right, so we're going to do a little water around the edges here. Yeah, we want to make sure that it's got a whole bunch. We don't want to water it too much. I don't think these particular plants need that much water. Okay. Yeah. Now, let me tell you a story about my, we'll bring this back in a couple weeks, and we'll see. We keep this here at the church, and so hopefully this will continue to grow, right? Now, here's what happened. So remember I was telling you I planted 2 trees in my backyard? That was 2 years ago, and one of the trees has grown. So when we planted them, they were my height. One of the trees is now 2 of me. It's gotten real high. It's about 12 feet tall. The other tree is only about 8 feet tall. What do you think happened? It's still growing. It still has leaves. It still looks healthy, but it didn't grow like the other one did. What do you think happened? Yeah, what do you think?
That one probably was maybe planted after.
They were planted on the same day. We planted them at the exact same time. Yeah, what do you think, JP? Why do you think one grew and one didn't? So maybe there was a difference in how they were planted, right? Maybe. Okay, what do you think?
I think either the place where the first tree was planted is a more sunnier spot.
Okay, maybe one of them is getting more nutrients. Maybe it's getting more sun, or maybe it's drinking more water. What do you think, Charlie?
Maybe you gave the second one too much water, and the first one you gave it the right amount.
Okay, maybe we gave it too much water, and it's like, stop, I can't drink anymore. Okay, well, all of those are really good ideas, and all of those are possible. But let me teach you something. There is sometimes when you take a tree and you move it to a new space, the roots take a little bit of time to find their new home. And it's actually a process called shocking a tree. And it doesn't matter, you can't really tell which it might do, and it might have something to do with the soil or it might not. But sometimes when you plant a tree or you plant a plant in somewhere new, it doesn't like it right away. It gets a little scared, and it doesn't know if it can survive. And so it doesn't think it's going to get enough food, or it doesn't think it's going to like its new home. I'm extrapolating here. But sometimes it takes it a year or two before it decides that that's where it wants its new home to be. And that doesn't mean that it didn't grow. It doesn't mean that it's not healthy, and it doesn't mean that one day it's going to be fine. It's going to grow into a new tree. But the 2 trees that I have, one said, yep, this is fine, this is great, and it's grown really, really tall. And the other one has taken a little bit longer than we thought. But, so what I want you to say is sometimes when we go to new places, when we get new homes, kind of like this, sometimes when that happens, it might take us a little bit of time. Sometimes maybe when we start a new school year, sometimes we go into a class and it doesn't maybe feel right away. You know what? That's okay, because that tree can still grow. You can still have a good year, Even if your first day is maybe a little harder than you thought it was going to be, or maybe a little scary, or maybe you don't know kind of what's here. That doesn't mean that it's not going to grow into somewhere beautiful. Does that make sense? Okay. Are you all ready for our third story? Okay. So what I want you to do is actually come, and I want you to sit down, if can, in this area, and leave me the front. We're going to tell one more story. Yep, just take a knee or have a seat. Or Thomas, I'm going to stand right here, actually. So why don't y'all back up just a little bit. Sounds good. Actually, can you go like right here? And you're perfect. Sounds good. All right. So I wanted to, were any of you listening right before I called you up? I told a story from the Bible. Did any of you hear this? Because I'll tell it to you again. Okay. So in the Bible, there is a story of a little boy named Samuel. Do any of you know the story of Samuel? Yeah, maybe? Okay. I'll tell it to you real quick. So Samuel's mom, it took her a long time to have a baby. And then one day she prayed, and God worked with her, and she had a little baby that she named Samuel. And she decided to let Samuel work and live at the temple that worshiped God. And she didn't get to live with Samuel. Samuel lived there, and he worked, and he did school. It was kind of like a boarding school. That he got to live there and study. And what it said is his mom, Hannah, was her name. Every year she would come and visit him, and every year that she visited him, she would bring him a new coat. So I want to do a little exercise with you. Can I have you guys come on up? Ivan, come on up. Ivan and Dune and Finn are all going to help me with an experiment. All right, Ivan, I need you to come stand right here. And Dune in the middle, Finn. Do you guys know these guys? Do you? So they're all brothers. This is Ivan, and this is Dune, and this is Finn. Ivan, how old are you? 11? 13? And 17. Okay. So over the course of the year, let's say that Samuel gets to meet his mom. She comes to visit him right at the beginning of the school year. And we're going to pretend that Ivan is young Samuel. So he's the Samuel at the beginning of the year. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think young Samuel's going to get bigger over the year? Do you think he's going to grow taller? Yeah? Because that happens, right? Have you gotten taller since last time you went to school, last year? If you've grown even a little bit, raise your hand. Okay, so most of us have grown a little bit. So here we have a coat, and let's pretend that this is a coat that Hannah were to make for Samuel. Now we're going to pretend that he's at the beginning of the year. Dune is going to be like right after Christmas. So this is like when you come back to school after Christmas break. And then Finn is going to be Samuel when he's at the very end of the year. So I want you to think about them as Samuel growing. Can you do that in your imagination with me? So here's my question for you. If this is the coat that Hannah brought him, what size coat should Hannah make for Samuel? What do you think? A bigger size every year because he's probably growing, right? So here, I'm going to have Finn put this on. So if this is Samuel at the end of the year, he's probably gotten really big. He's grown, and the coat's probably a little too small, right? Because Samuel needs a new one, right? He doesn't need a new one just because it's a little too short and it's a little too tight. It's probably time for him to get a new coat, right? So, all right, go ahead and take that out for me. So Hannah needs to bring him a new coat because he's growing, and he needs to grow into a bigger coat. So what size coat should he bring? Should she bring the exact same size for him? Why not? Because it'd be too small, so she needs to bring a bigger one, but how much bigger should she make it?
God, how inefficient.
A size bigger. Okay, so let's make it one size bigger. And let's fast forward. So let's pretend that this is the new coat. It's one size bigger than you had it. Wait a minute. This one's too big. Did she do something wrong? What do you think, Jenny? Maybe a half size bigger, but let's think about this. If this is the beginning of the year, then how quick is Samuel going to outgrow this coat? Let's see. If it's Dune. Here we go. So this is right after Christmas. Oh, this looks about right, huh? Oh, so that's perfect. So can do you think Dune can keep wearing this? It fits just right, but he could probably wear it a little bit longer, right? So Hannah actually made a coat that was too big, but Samuel grew into it, and it fit kind of just right in the middle. And then right about the time that she came back again, it was too tight and he was ready for it again. You understand what I'm saying? She bought a coat for him that was already too big for him because she thought ahead that actually she needed the coat to fit all year. If she had bought one that fit him just right at the beginning, he would have outgrown it by Christmas and then he wouldn't have had a coat. Does that make sense? Sometimes when we go into new spaces, when we go into new times like new classes, new teachers, new friends, sometimes it feels too big. It feels like we don't understand the rules. We don't understand how things work. We don't understand how a teacher is going to operate. But if we hang in there, chances are that new place is going to fit just right. And then we're actually going to get to the end of the year and it's going to be all right. We're going to know how the whole system works and we're actually going to be ready for a new challenge. Does that make sense? So as you go into, thank you guys, I appreciate it. As we go into a new school year, as we go into these new places, I want you all to feel, to have permission to say, it might not be easy the first time, but that's okay, because you need time to grow into your coat, and you need time for your classes to become comfortable, and to get to know your teachers a little bit. Because you're going to meet next year, if we do this, who knows, the teacher you meet tomorrow, Winston, might be a teacher that we end up putting on the board, and we say thank you for all that they've done. Does that make sense? And I want you to just remember, the Spirit of God's going to be with you. If you're a little scared, or even if you're really excited, that's okay, because something good can happen. Okay? So those are our 3 stories that we have today, and we're talking about change and growth. And hopefully our plant will survive. Hopefully we did that right. Hopefully I prepared that right. Here's what I'm going to do, friends. I'm going to have you go sit back down with your parents. But before you go, at the end of this service, we have our Sunday school classrooms with your teachers. And if you can come on Sunday mornings during this service, there are teachers that are going to have a class with crafts and with lessons and stories, kind of like we've been telling today. And anytime you're here, you can be a part of all the things that are going on. We have 3 different classes. And next week, you'll get to try them out. You'll go straight there before the service starts. And you'll do your service in your class, and we'll do service here. And then afterwards, you and your family can talk about the things that you learned together. But today, if you want to just go meet the teachers, you can do that. There's a photo booth over here right outside the door so that you can take a picture on your first day of our new school year. There's going to be some individually packaged cookies in your room if you want to stop by, a little incentive. We also have some activities and some more directions for parents. Please go do that. At the end of this service, I'll give you some more specific directions of where to go. But we are looking forward to a really good new year. So I'm going to have you go back to your families. Thank you all for joining me today. And we're going to move into a breakout time. And I'd love for you all, even on Zoom, you'll get invited to a breakout room here in just a second. I want you to reflect on this question of the last year. I believe that no matter what season of life that we're in, we are growing. And it's been one of the exercises I did last year over the spring was an Art on Oak spotlight. And we had artists from all over the Kansas City area do these video interviews with me. And one of the things that I loved about what they were hearing is almost all of them were in some kind of art class themselves, even the professionals. They were in these spaces where they were learning and they were getting feedback. And I've heard that from a lot of you as well, that you've actually, over this year of quarantine, you didn't sit back and do nothing. You had someone show you how to garden a little differently, or showed you how to do an art skill a little bit more proficiently, or a language class. I want you to think about the thing you've done to invest in your growth, in the growth of your family, the growth of your neighborhood. And I want you to just share about that or reflect on that. We'll come back together in about 5-6 minutes and continue on in worship. So go ahead. We'll be back in just a minute.